on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Motherfucker, he's on his...
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Listener discretion is advised. The show contains graphic language and depictions of violence. It may not be suitable for all audiences.
We say fuck a lot. Hey guys, welcome back to Mountain Murders.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
He's definitely Dylan today.
Oh my God, fall is in the air. Can you feel it? Ooh.
We had plans to podcast. We know we're doing this. It's Sunday. It's podcast day.
Yes.
Then Audacity, which is our recording audio editing software, just
it's our digital
shits
audio.
the bed.
Yeah.
Right? It's a free software. Shits the bed. The last software that we downloaded and paid for totally shit the bed. That's why we started using Audacity. So the last minute, I have to buy and download Adobe Audition. So this is our first time recording in Adobe Audition. Hopefully it's going to be dandy.
I feel good about Adobe. I feel really good about this digital audio. What the hell does that even stand for? DAW, DAW? Yeah. That's how technical we are here at Mountain Murders,
Right.
folks.
And just before we sit down to record, Dylan decides to chow down on a big sausage.
What? Whoa. The sausage was, okay, first of all,
It was a big sausage.
the sausage was cut in half, okay?
It's still a big sausage.
Into an edible size piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got people out there, it's like I'm just double-handing, double-fisting the sausage.
He is. Imagine it's like a state fair and like a turkey leg, but no, it's like a big sausage, and Dylan's just like gnawing on it, like sausage in hand. And then he's all like, before we start to record, and I'm like, why the fuck are you eating? Like right before we sit down to do this.
That's a lie about that. I was not
not.
double-fisting the sausage.
He was double fisting the sausage.
So anyway, I had some sausage skin stuck in my throat.
He was like even like cupping the end of the sausage.
Oh, fuck you, dude. For real, this is not cool.
Well, then stop eating when it's podcast time.
Well, I'm not eating right now.
It's not peanut butter jelly time. It's podcast time.
You're making me want more sausage.
This man cooked so much meat yesterday.
Oh, well, it was my daughter Ayla's birthday, and we had a hot dog, gourmet hot dogs, and various other types of meat.
Sausages, beer brats.
Yes.
Yeah, he has
Oh my
like a
God.
bowl of leftover phallic shaped meats.
Yeah, I'm going to be eating those for days.
He loves it.
That meat will never go bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's been a good week, right, Dylan? You've had a good week. I've had a
Yes.
good week. You've been working your ass off, I have to say. You've
fuck
worked
that
hard.
place.
There was a fire at your mill as well.
Yes, there was, and it was a very serious event.
We actually had some listeners reach out to make sure that you were okay, which I thought was really sweet.
That is nice of them. I appreciate that, but it wasn't in my area. But it was a really significant event, is all I'll say about it.
Very, very sad,
Very sad.
right?
Very sad.
But some folks had seen the news reports
Right.
regionally and wanted to reach out, make sure you were okay. He's fine. He's
No.
eating sausage. He's great.
I made it.
He did. We've had a good day. We went to Asheville today.
Yes, we just had to get out of the house.
Probably the first time we've had a little date in a while.
Yes.
We had lunch. We went thrifting. We encountered some fucking crazy people. Can we just talk about some of these people before we get started?
I just don't know why you can't just make your purchase right quick and exit the store. That's
I feel
all I'm
like
looking for.
Every time we go anywhere, there's that person, right? That always has to be a problem, cause a scene. They speak very loudly so that everyone in the store knows
Yeah.
I'm buying dental floss or whatever.
I mean, come on, people. How hard is it?
So we were doing some thrifting and we were in Goodwill. There's a line, of course. Everyone's waiting. There's 2 registers open. There is a woman there and she's causing such a scene.
Man, she's digging in her pockets. She's going through all her stuff.
She's like organizing 6 different wallets.
Talking about some shit she bought some other time she came in.
She's talking about taking her car to the Honda dealership because she couldn't get her sound to play, and it turns out that like her phone volume was turned down.
Yeah, so this is who we're dealing
she's like
with.
telling this like story, and no one cares.
She has her phone Bluetooth into the car's stereo. And there's no volume, so she takes it in to get fixed, and that's all it was the volume's down on her fucking phone. So this is the type of person we're dealing with.
So she's telling the story very loudly. Everyone's waiting, rolling eyes, like, will you fucking go home, please?
Oh my God,
Then she stops in front of the door and is like digging through like 6 bags or whatever for receipts. She can't find her receipt. She's like making a big deal about the receipt.
The receipt for the Goodwill shit she just purchased that I don't think you could bring back anyway because it's Goodwill shit.
I think they do have a return policy.
Well, here's the thing. I don't care where your fucking receipt is.
Look, I tried on these corduroy pants at home. I farted in them, and now I would like to bring them back.
I just want you to leave the store so I can make my purchase right quick, and so I can leave the store.
Yeah, so that was like the first person that we met today that we were just like, what the hell? And then we went to the Halloween store.
Oh my God, we met an entire family of morons.
It was like a clan, like 4 generations.
Yes.
Of this family, right? Oh my gosh. Kids, grandma, it was, ugh.
So let me set the scene for everybody. So you go in the Halloween spirit store, Heather's favorite store. Every time it pops up, no matter where it's at in our area, she has to go to get more stockings and leggings. And
I might need clown makeup.
She might need clown makeup or home decor. Or some dishes, some cups.
I need some new Friday the 13th plastic cups.
Yeah,
because the ghost in our house has broken all of our glasses.
Yeah,
I'm not even exaggerating.
We can only use plastic cups.
It's true.
Because they survive.
Our ghost will like literally throw the glasses out of the dish drain into the floor. It's crazy.
So here's this family. It must be 10 deep. They got kids all the way down to one in a carrier. And they're just going on and no mask. Nobody's wearing a mask, which is whatever on that. But it's obvious like you're like, it's the fuck mask crowd. COVID ain't real. Fuck mask, COVID ain't real crowd, right?
Well, I felt like their whole like demeanor and body language was just like hoping someone would say something to them.
Right. So they cause a big scene about it.
Yeah.
And like post it online and
TikTok
be like,
or something.
we ain't brainwashed or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Right. And this carries on all the way through the line. We had the misfortune of getting in line behind them. And they're going on.
They let everyone in the store know for like a solid 45 minutes that they have a haunted trail and how excited they are about their haunted trail and how much money they've spent on their haunted trail.
They're going to have a haunted trail between the 2 double wides that your mama let them put on their land.
Pretty
I'm
much.
going to assume. Yeah, which is nothing wrong with a double wide. I grew up in single wides. Oh, you had to be rich to have a double wide where I came from.
Yeah, I know, man. You really be like fancy if you had a double wide.
Yeah, don't let that son bitch have skylights and shit in it.
Oh, damn. Or a garden tub?
Ah, fuck.
Yeah. Or it's got like the wallpaper instead of the paneling.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Damn.
Right.
That's like a house.
But they were so obnoxious and so loud, and it was just like the same type of shit at the register. We're behind them, and it's like back and forth and back and forth.
15 or 20 minutes. Just so, how much did you spend? I spent $100, and I'm going to go buy that now. And just like, nobody cares, people. Buy your shit and leave.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Maybe they don't care about, maybe this doesn't bother our listeners.
Maybe not, but if you are annoyed by like these types of people when you're in stores in public and you just want to buy your shit and leave, let us know. We're not alone.
Oh, yes. And you could send that story. Yeah, you could send that story to mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com, and we will have an episode where we talk shit about people
just
for you.
Annoying people in public. We would love to talk about that. Okay, let's get into it. Episode 102.
Yep, here we do it.
Right? And last week we had listener stories, which was really fun. And you can also send in your listener stories, again, mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com. Even if it's just you want to bitch about somebody who's really annoying. We're fine with that.
Yep.
Shout out to our newest patron, Michelle.
Hey, Michelle.
We're dedicating this episode of Mountain Murders to our friend Hannah and her dad, Jack, who just passed away from a type of cancer. I'm not going to attempt to butcher
You can't say
that
it.
medical terminology.
No, you can't say it. So,
but we love Hannah. She is like the sweetest, cutest baby ever. And I'm really sorry that you lost your dad, Hannah.
yes, you have our condolences, and all our thoughts and positive energy are coming to you and your family right now. And we're sad, very sad to hear about your loss.
We hope you hear this and it cheers you up a little bit.
Yes. And one more thing, we would like to thank our friend Marty.
Marty up in the New York City.
Man, he's up in New York, New York.
NYC, yo. Thanks for the Michael Alec poster. It's amazing.
That's going on the wall.
It's autographed
Yes.
by Michael Alec, the club kid.
It's very cool.
If you saw Party Monster or you read Disco Bloodbath, then you know who we're talking about. But it's amazing. We're going to frame it. It's going on the wall.
Yes, thank you very much for that. It's super dope.
He gifted it to us, and we are just so appreciative.
Yes, we are, because
cool.
we know how hard it is to come by signed things like that.
Yeah.
Now what are we going to do?
Well, we're going to talk about a case that has been a popular true crime case. And, normally we kind of avoid those very popular stories and topics that other podcasts have covered to death.
Yeah, we do.
No pun intended.
Oh, wow, that was good.
Yeah.
I like that.
But this is, I'm going to say local because it's a North Carolina story. We wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, this is one of those cases that I think people tend to have strong feelings either way about, whether they did it or didn't do it. And so I think this is one of the better cases of that.
Okay, let's get into it, Dylan. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
In the early morning hours of December 9th, 2001, Michael Peterson frantically called 911 to report he had found the lifeless body of his wife, Kathleen, at the bottom of the staircase in their Durham, North Carolina mansion. Not long after, Michael would be the number one suspect and charged with killing his wife. This is a case with many wild twists and turns. The mystery unfolds like something straight out of a Hollywood movie. It's a case I believe people will be talking about for a long time.
Yeah, you couldn't make this one up, I don't think.
Michael Peterson was born October 23rd, 1943 in Nashville, Tennessee. His father was a career military officer, so the family, including Michael, moved several times during his childhood, and I imagine that's got to be difficult being a military brat.
Well, yeah, I moved a lot as a child, and I know the problems it caused me as far as never having your best friend. You've been in, school since kindergarten, or just really putting roots down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if you're in the military and you have kids and you PCS quite a bit, you're going to have life on the base. It's going to be probably different. There's usually a base school. So your kids end up being friends with other kids who are military kids. I don't know. So, it's kind of like a community, but it also kind of makes you feel a bit isolated, like the only people you know are other military families. And that's not always the case, but I've seen that in a lot of instances.
Well, yeah, I think it affects a young person adversely, no matter the reason. But even in the military, you might be in different countries and different cultures outside of the base, so that could be even harder to adjust to.
So there's pros and cons, right? Well, with the frequent moves, Michael leaned into his hobby, which was reading. And as a teenager, Michael fell in love with the works of Ernest Hemingway. And why not? Hemingway is an American treasure. Inspired by Hemingway, Michael set his sights on becoming a writer as well. He attended the prestigious Duke University in Durham, North Carolina. Duke is placed 8th among the world's universities. It's a top-notch school.
Go Tar Heels!
Yeah, we're Tar Heels fans. But Duke's a really good school.
Well, yeah, as far as academics and stuff, keeping sports outside of it, because Duke sucks.
Fuck Duke basketball, but Duke's a great school.
No, but as far as academics go, it's got to be top 5, right?
It's
top 10.
It's excellent. Well, it's ranked 8.
You can't just buy your way in.
University.
You can't just buy your way in, right? You got to have the academic chops to get in as well, right?
So obviously Peterson is very intelligent. He studied political science at Duke and was president of the Sigma Nu fraternity. He was also editor of the student newspaper for a year. He would attend some law school classes at UNC Chapel Hill, but he didn't finish the law program. By 1965, Peterson took a civilian job with the Department of Defense. His primary role was to research arguments supporting increased military involvement in Vietnam. So basically, propaganda. And I can't blame him. I was also part of the military propaganda machine. That was public affairs, so I get it. Soon after settling in Germany, Peterson married a woman named Patricia. She was a school teacher at the Rhine-Main Air Base. Together, they produced 2 sons, Todd and Clayton. By 1968, with the Americans' involvement in Vietnam, Peterson felt that call of duty, so he joined the U.S. Marine Corps. And he climbed the ranks, eventually becoming a captain, which is an 03 officer. But he was discharged in 1971 after a car accident left him with a permanent disability. He and his wife remained in Germany for some time, eventually befriending another couple named Elizabeth and George Ratliff. George passed away, at which time Michael became very close to the family, and the couple had 2 daughters, Margaret and Martha. In 1985, Elizabeth passed away, so Michael was awarded guardianship of her daughters. Patricia and Michael divorced in 1987, and he moved to Durham with his adopted daughters, and eventually his sons would join him there as well.
Yeah, it's like kind of a nuclear or mixed family of sorts.
Peterson pursued his love of writing and focused primarily on stories from his experiences during the Vietnam War. So much like Hemingway. I mean, he wrote about his experiences in World War I.
Yeah.
Being an ambulance driver in Italy and all.
Well, he sounds like a dedicated man. I mean, he's done a lot and, went on to serve. He didn't have to do that. I think he could have, stayed out of the draft maybe. But yeah, he sounds like someone who wants to do something for his country.
He wrote 3 books. The Immortal Dragon was published in 1983, A Time of War, and A Bitter Peace. He also co-wrote 2 other books. One was autobiographical. Michael also wrote a column for the Durham newspaper, the Herald Sun. And in his columns, he was often very critical of police and the district attorney, who was a man named James Hardin Jr. And this is important to note because Hardin's going to be an active participant later in our story.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So by 1992, Michael found himself in another relationship with a woman named Kathleen Atwater. The pair were neighbors, both living in the exclusive Forest Hills neighborhood. Both single parents. Kathleen was ready to be swept off her feet, and Michael seemed to be a Prince Charming. Let's talk a little bit about Durham, North Carolina, for people who might not be familiar with that area. It's part of the Research Triangle, which is an area known for its colleges and tech companies.
Yeah, that's a big deal down there.
After the Civil War, during Reconstruction, it became known for its tobacco companies and tobacco industry. The Dukes, who owned American Tobacco, also invested largely in Duke Power, bringing electricity to the state. It is known for Duke University, and it's a growing city. So North Carolina is like number 9 in migration. So people are flooding into the state for the last few years, and specifically into the Triangle area, because there's a lot of jobs, affordable housing.
Maybe we should move there.
Well, I lived in the Triangle for a bit. Your mom lives in the Triangle.
My mama lives down there in Carborough.
Yeah, just outside of Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
But it's booming. It's a charming southern city, and it's brimming with art, history, diversity.
Yeah, if you go there, you can definitely tell that, there's a large influx of, population into the area. Lots of dense housing, lots of mega retail, which I think is kind of gross.
The suburbs are just like sprawling.
Yeah.
All the little subdivisions, like the little row houses that are kind of like right on top of each other.
Yeah,
little tract homes.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. And then like you mentioned, there's a lot of that mixed facility, like housing on top, shishi apartments, and then like the little bougie retail underneath.
You can have an apartment above Starbucks.
Yeah.
What happens when the Starbucks closes? Nobody talks about that.
Well, Kathleen is attractive, smart, and successful in her own right. She's an executive with Nortel Networks. Kathleen was born in Greensboro, North Carolina on February 21st, 1953, but she grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Kathleen's parents believed in education, so they raised her to be a hard worker and career-oriented. She graduated first in her class and was editor of the high school magazine. And while she was in high school, she was named Girl of the Year.
Ooh.
She was the first high school student to take college-level Latin at Franklin and Marshall College.
I was named Guy of the Year last year.
So you can imagine Kathleen is a go-getter. She also attended Duke University, and in 1971, some say she was the first female to be admitted into Duke's engineering program.
Well, that's a big deal.
She earned a bachelor's and a master's degree in mechanical engineering.
Wow, so this sounds like a rather successful couple.
Yeah.
Right?
So while in college, Kathleen fell in love with a co-ed named Fred, and the couple got married. They eventually moved to Maryland, and Kathleen was slaying. She was the queen of the corporate ladder, breaking those glass ceilings, kicking ass. She was employed by Baltimore Air Coil, and while in Baltimore, the couple had a child together named Caitlin, but she divorced Fred, eventually moving back to the Durham area. She was described as a devoted mother who doted on her daughter. And she was also a prominent socialite in Durham, enjoying the single life and all the charms the city had to offer. She was an arts benefactor and a philanthropist. I mean, I guess you could say Kathleen was living her best life.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
She was active in the American Dance Festival and a member of the Durham Arts Council. By 1989, Kathleen had met Michael, and it all seemed to be perfect. The couple moved in together with their blended families. Again, Michael's got 4 kids, and Kathleen has a daughter. They were like the Brady Bunch, but without the bell-bottoms.
So Michael has his 2 kids and then the 2 girls of his friend in Germany, right?
Yes.
Okay.
From the outside, Michael and Kathleen seemed to have it all. They lived in the posh area of Forest Hills in a sprawling 14-room mansion.
Oh, my God. That must be nice.
Both had a lot in common. I mean, they were Duke alumni. They were intelligent, articulate, motivated, and ambitious. Kathleen was a corporate powerhouse, while Michael was a best-selling author. And they were both bright. And together you just had this whirlwind romance, success, and everyone in Durham knew this couple. Kathleen was a fixture of Durham's social scene, and Michael was a war veteran, and friends said they were just like best friends, soulmates, very warm, loving towards each other. They really seemed to enjoy each other's company.
Wow, baby, it's like our relationship minus all the money.
One friend said they were compatible in every sense of the word.
Yeah, and you see these couples, they seem to, I mean, even if you're with someone you love, you love each other, you see this couple, there's like, almost like they're not real, they're so into each other and seem so perfect for each other and like just, tailor-made for one another. So you see couples like that and you're just like, oh man, fuck those people.
You just don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
You never know.
What was that country song about behind closed doors?
You never know what's hiding in the tree,
What's
waiting.
behind closed doors? Was that Charlie Rich?
I think you just made that up.
Okay, don't at me. I'm not sure. It was
Yeah,
Charlie
you need to
Rich
at
or
her, guys.
Freddie Fender. No, it was Charlie Rich, I think. Anyway, with his book profits, Michael bought Kathleen that 14-room mansion. It's an 11,000 square foot colonial revival they would call home. It was a financial success that Michael had not known before. The house was pretty darn fancy. It was built in 1940 and known as the John Buchanan House, with a pool. It had been used in the movie A Handmaid's Tale with Robert Duvall.
Oh, really?
Had an award-winning rose garden, fountains, a large foyer with sweeping grand staircase.
Oh, my gosh.
We'll never live in a house like this.
Oh, I have a house like that. I've just been waiting, making sure you love me for me, not my money.
This house sounds difficult to take care of and also heat.
It sounds like you
the
need
winter.
people to help you take care of this house.
Yeah. Well, anytime you have a home and it's known as like the John Buchanan house, like it's that kind of fancy.
Yes.
I
don't know.
Right?
Well, I welcome you to the Dylan Packer house. We don't have award-winning anything, but we do have hot water.
We have a stackable washer and dryer. Woo.
Yeah, provided by the landlord.
The house was kind of an odd home because it seemed to be kind of caught between like the modern and the old South. There were toilets in the basement that had been used by servants and buzzers in the house to call maids and housekeepers and butlers.
Okay.
But the house was decorated in kind of an unusual way. Michael and Kathleen knew fine living, and they had traveled the world, and they kind of liked what they liked. So the house probably didn't fit into what one might expect inside. I mean, this was probably definitely not a home that was going to be featured in, like, Southern living.
Oh, so you have this kind of old style house, old Southern style mansion.
Yeah.
But then they've traveled the world, and they have picked up things along the way, and some art of various types, sculptures
just
and things.
Kind of like their own funky style.
And they just throw it in there, and they don't.
Wasn't like
yeah,
what people would have thought maybe the house would be decorated like inside. It wasn't stuffy. They didn't have the big vintage antique wingback chairs, and you know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't look like the Biltmore house inside. In 1997, the couple would be married in this fabulous foyer.
Man, that's a big foyer.
Kathleen was a happy, beautiful bride, and she decorated the entire staircase and area with magnolia flowers. This was like the wedding of her dreams. The couple threw lavish cocktail parties and fancy dinners. Entertaining was something they really enjoyed together, and they had a host of friends. Kathleen would have like 30 to 60 people for dinner, and that was like nothing to have 30 to 60 people over for like this elegant dinner.
What the hell, man?
And people saw Kathleen as kind of like a Wonder Woman. I mean, she's kicking ass at work. She's raising 5 kids. She's a loving wife, an amazing hostess, making these grand, like lavish dinners, meals, like 5-course meals.
How the hell does she do all that?
And she's an active member of the community. Again, she's into arts. She's a philanthropist.
Well, I bet she had some help doing all those dinners and stuff.
No, actually, people said she just really enjoyed like cooking and being a hostess and like making food and feeding people.
Wow.
Making like holiday cookies and crafting and making sure the house was decorated. Like she was just really into that. So again, she's like a Wonder Woman. How did she find time to do it all?
I don't know.
It's exhausting for me to think
I'm
about.
tired thinking about any of that.
During this time, Michael is encouraged to run for mayor in 1999. Now, being an outspoken columnist gained him a lot of support from the people, but maybe not so much from the higher-ups in town.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're going to have a political pushback, for lack of a better word, from people like that if you've been consistently critical of the system, basically, when you call out people in that system.
So you're saying that I can't be like mayor?
You're never going to be voted into anything in our town.
Right.
Yeah.
So as a guest columnist, sometimes I'm not allowed to be mayor.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
I get a lot of pushback.
Well, maybe that and the satanic, symbols and stuff we surround ourselves with.
His ambition landed him in the midst of a scandal. So Peterson had that car wreck while he was on active duty in the military back in the 70s, and he walked with a limp. So for years, he exaggerated that the injury was due to the Vietnam War.
Oh, no, he didn't do a stolen valor thing, did he?
It was fabricated.
Oh,
and when you're in the political spotlight, lies can really soil your reputation. And as you probably guessed, Peterson did not become Durham's next mayor.
Well, and that right there, that lie in particular, is not a good look. Because we have people who have sacrificed everything. We have people who've been gravely wounded in action. And any time that even if it's a white lie, like you don't tell the whole truth or through omission you're lying, that's just not a good look, and that's not going to work, especially down here in the South. It
was fairly embarrassing. A lot of people, including Kathleen, felt like he'd lied to them, but Kathleen, the supportive wife, she rallied around him. A very showy fall from grace. So the defeat in the mayor's race kicked off a string of bad news for this bear. So 2 years after losing the mayoral race, he ran for city council and lost again.
Maybe he should hang up his cleats in the political arena.
Then Kathleen's life started changing too. When the dot-com burst happened in the early 2000s, Kathleen began losing money. Nortel stock at one time had been like Kathleen's, plan for the future, retirement, all of that. She had a lot tied up in her Nortel stock. And she'd been sitting as a multimillionaire, but she began bleeding money. So this upset her retirement plan. She had wanted to move to Paris, have a second home there. But the magic 8 ball says outlook not good.
Well, that's the danger you run when you're an executive of any type and you have a lot of your wealth tied up in stock options. So, it's kind of like us regular folk. We're left with just a shitty 401k that can crash the year before, you retire.
Right. So they didn't have a lot of liquid.
Right.
Not to mention that the mansion they bought always needed work. As you mentioned, Dylan, this is not the kind of home that two people could really keep up and maintain.
No, you can't just do a new deck every 10 years and paint the outside. This place has constant maintenance that if you don't address those maintenance issues, it will literally fall into disrepair.
It was a constant project, the house. The grounds and the upkeep is expensive. It was never like a few $100 to fix something. This house cost tens upon tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, just money, money, money.
Well, that's what happens to those lottery winners. They'll buy some huge house or estate like this and not realizing that, like, say the light bill is $15,000 a month or the taxes are, $98,000 a year. Those costs never stop for a place like this.
The financial stress was beginning to take its toll on Kathleen. Her daughter relayed that her mother would often call her up and just start crying.
So here they've went from almost this magical relationship where they're doing everything they want. They, I'm sure plenty of people were kind of jealous of them, even the other people that, might have had plenty of money and stuff, seemed like they could do anything they want and have all this fun. And now that's the thing about this type of living at this type of life. It could quickly funnel down the drain.
Yeah, so the Petersons were having some significant cash flow problems. And Michael, being a writer, you're only as good as your last book. So he wasn't bringing in money. Kathleen is the sole breadwinner. They had reportedly $143,000 in credit card debt.
Oh my God.
I don't even know how you can have that kind of credit to get that kind of limit on your cards.
You hear these cards with no limits and things of that nature, and people could literally put a house on their credit card or a second or third home on their credit card. But that gives me anxiety even thinking about if I had $16,000 in credit card debt.
If I had $1,400 in credit card debt, that would give me anxiety.
Well, that's just because we don't really have credit cards, but I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I have one credit card.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, if you consider the interest and the whatever the APR kicks in and all that, I mean, that alone is a problem, financial problem.
Well, with that kind of debt and just in my research, they were actually having to pay bills and buy groceries and that kind of thing with their credit cards.
Okay, and that's unsustainable.
Life came crashing down for everyone on December the 9th, 2001. So around 2:40 a.m., Michael placed a confused call to 911 stating that he had found his wife, Kathleen, at the bottom of the stairs. Now, he states that she had had an accident, fell down the stairs. She was breathing but not conscious. When EMS arrives, Kathleen was lying at the bottom of the stairs with Michael hovering over her. There was blood on the wall, on the stairs. Her eyes were open, but kind of staring nowhere. And paramedics determined pretty quickly she had expired.
Oh my God. This scene, this staircase. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it.
Distraught, Michael tells the paramedics that he and Kathleen were drinking champagne, watching a movie together. He went outside to turn off the pool lights, while Kathleen went up to the bedroom. And when he came inside, 48-year-old Kathleen was at the bottom of the stairs injured. He says Kathleen was probably drunk and had taken Valium. Now, on this unseasonably warm evening, the couple had decided to stay in. Now let's cue the exile. When you get home, babe, I'm gonna light your fire. All day I've been thinking about you, babe. You're my one desire.
Oh, God, who is that?
Exile. Oh. I wanna kiss you all over.
Oh.
Right?
See, I know that part.
So they're gonna stay in. They're gonna have this romantic evening. Michael had rented America's Sweethearts from Blockbuster. And I had to actually Google what America's Sweethearts was. It's a 2001 film starring Catherine Zeta-Jones, Julia Roberts, and John Cusack.
Oh,
which is
no
about
more.
the most 2001 cast you could have.
Oh,
right?
my God.
Now, the evening before, the couple had attended a black tie bash. So this evening was all about being at home together. Kathleen was wearing a navy sweatshirt, white sweatpants, flip-flops. She was able to let her hair down. They were just chillaxing. Michael would later state that on this evening, the couple was celebrating good news. One of Michael's books had been sold as, the film rights to the book had been sold. And it looked like the project was going to get the green light. So this could be a wonderful solution to their problems. He thought with a movie deal, he was going to be like the next Tom Clancy or James Patterson.
So an influx of cash was possibly coming their way.
Yeah, bitch, better have my money.
Which it sounds like at this point would be welcome news to them.
Yeah, they definitely need an infusion of cash at this point.
Okay.
Durham police arrive on the scene. Officers note the immense amount of blood.
Anyone who saw the series on Netflix or has looked through this case at all and looked at any of the pictures, there is blood everywhere down this staircase. I mean, everywhere. I mean, it looks like 6 people were murdered in this staircase.
The splatter was fairly high on the walls. There was a pool of blood on the steps. Her clothes were soiled with blood. It was obvious they needed to call a detective to the house. So already officers have red flags flying.
Well, I don't blame them. I don't blame anyone who comes to the scene and he's saying that she must have, fell down the staircase and here he's found her at the bottom. I don't know how you don't see all the blood and are instantly what the hell?
Officers note that Michael just didn't seem to be too incredibly concerned that his wife had died. Okay, some people react differently to grief. We all know this.
It's true.
I mean, he may have been in shock, disbelief, whatever, but it is strange behavior. Also, Michael's son Todd had shown up in the midst of this chaos, and then out of nowhere, his 2 friends arrive. So it was just kind of like this weird, awkward situation.
Well, yeah, clear them out, guy. I mean, what are you doing? Your buddies over and shit? What are y'all watching the game?
So the first hour, while paramedics are trying to get Kathleen out of the house, officers are there trying to survey the scene. They've called detectives in. Michael is just sort of doing as he pleases.
So here, the scene started out. You got 911 call, which is strange, right? It's confused.
Well, he seems confused.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the 911 operator is asking him questions and he's like, I don't know if it's like he's not paying attention or he's distracted by what she's asking, but he just can't seem to communicate with the 911 operator exactly.
Okay. Doesn't he hang up and call right back?
He hangs up first he hangs up or calls and says she's still breathing, and then he hangs up, calls back, and is like, I'm not sure she's breathing. Hurry, come back.
Yeah.
Or, you need to get here. But it was like 3 minutes apart. And then later he'll say that he felt like it was much longer than the 3 minutes.
Okay, so here it is. It's an accident. And the first, as soon as the call comes in, cops show up. It's an accident. They're already feeling uneasy about it, but it's still being treated as an accident. So, Peterson's not been, if they had any questions, they would have come in. They would have took him, got control of him. They would have got his clothes. They would have started all that. But then you got the son coming in and random people. So it sounds quite chaotic at first.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be. So like I said, the first hour, Michael's just kind of doing as he pleases. He's pacing. He's walking around. He's circling the kitchen. He was caught by an officer trying to wash his hands. And the officer's like, you can't do that. You can't do that yet. Just hang tight. Investigators find blood on the inside door, the couch, and on the ground. This is like in the living room type of area. Blood is reaching up the walls somewhere between 70 to 90 inches.
That's over 8 feet. That's almost 8 feet.
Yeah.
96 inches, 8 feet.
They find alcohol had been poured down the sink, which could still be smelled by the officers. Like some bottle of champagne had been poured down the sink.
Okay. Why would you do that?
2 glasses were sitting by the sink. Now, one was smudged with fingerprints, but the other looked fresh. Was somebody setting a stage here? Because that's going to be a question asked later.
Well, there's just a lot going on. The scene's being walked through. It sounds like stuff's getting transferred, which is very important as this investigation goes on.
Now, these things were just not adding up for the investigators. Michael's story wasn't really making sense, especially when they were taking a full view of the scene. It just looked suspicious. And he had taken his shoes off by her body at some point.
Okay.
So he's walking around barefoot. His shoes are over by Kathleen's body. Luminol is sprayed, and they find footprints going from her body into the kitchen, like to the cupboard and back. Which is odd.
That's odd.
And at some point after he finds her body, like I said, he takes his shoes off, he walks around, and there's also a bloody shoe print on the back of her leg.
Oh, like someone stepped on her.
Right.
Okay.
When Michael is finally escorted outside the home with his son Todd, and this is just sort of like being informally held until more backup and investigators could arrive, Michael immediately asks police, "Do I need to call a lawyer?"
Well, yeah, I'm not going to hold that against him because, you know, it's always the spouse who did it if they're suspecting any foul play. But, I mean, when you just put all this stuff in, one of these weird things wouldn't be so, you know, he could just be reacting strangely or in shock, you know, to his wife having died. But when you look at all of them, it does start to make you wonder what's really going on in his head.
Well, I mean, all they're doing is saying, "Hey, can you guys step outside? Because, hey, we've got all this blood. She's in there. We've got paramedics, police." Like, they're probably trying to work on getting her out of the house.
Right.
So they're just like, "Hey, can you come out here? I mean, you're disturbing the scene."
You've been walking around in the scene for an hour.
Not to mention that, like, it's probably very traumatic to see this. So why don't you just come step out here? And then he's immediately asking, "Do I need to call a lawyer?" And then he starts telling his son, "I'm being framed."
Okay. All right.
Todd, his son, grows pretty irate, and by the time they're brought back inside to Michael's office, Todd is refusing to cooperate. Todd is saying, "No one has done anything wrong here. This is our house. You guys need to leave. I'm not answering any questions."
Yeah, you need to leave. Yeah, I need you guys to just pack things up and leave. What the hell?
Detectives are continuing to examine the scene for clues. Michael's over on the computer just typing away while his wife is lying deceased a few rooms over. He's checking emails. He's typing emails out. Michael is still believing his treatment by Durham police is wrong, and he feels like the police had been gunning for him since they'd arrived at the house. And he resented that they were combing his house as if it were a crime scene, trying to make a tragedy even more difficult.
Well, I mean, those could be natural reactions to a degree, but I don't think I'll be worried about my email if you were laying there dead of an accident. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't care about. My first thought wouldn't be, do I need a lawyer and I need to tell everybody that you've died? I would be all to hell about you having, you know, been killed or died accidentally. So that's kind of odd.
Well, at some point, he is on the phone with his friend/attorney, a woman named Carrie Sutton, and he asks her to come to the house. So she arrives around 9 a.m. Police told her she wasn't allowed in the house and couldn't talk to Mr. Peterson, and she asked if he was being arrested. They say no. Then she's basically like, "Screw you guys, you can't hold him against his will."
Okay.
Now, in the days following Kathleen's death, Michael seemed to lay low. The family had come from near and far to gather for the funeral. Two sisters drove in from Virginia, and they were reeling from this news. The three, Kathleen and her two sisters, had just gone to Paris together, like just before this had happened. So they just had like this wonderful vacation.
Yeah, now she's dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Kathleen's family wanted answers because her accidental death seemed really extraordinary. Michael tasked Kathleen's sister with planning out her funeral, but no one on Kathleen's side of the family could really get Michael to open up or talk about her death. And they wanted to know what had transpired on the evening she died.
Well, who wouldn't?
And though Michael is not talking to Kathleen's relatives, he's talking to a lawyer. And her family just finds this really strange, right? He seemed upset, as if he was unable to control his grief, but he didn't give her any more information about what had happened. Like, every time the sister would try to talk to him,
Well,
he would just fake or like feign really like, out of control grief and, like, upset and whatever, but he, like, wouldn't talk to her.
Yeah, what's so hard about that? Even if it is painful, telling them what happened or what you think happened or what you know of the evening up to that point. What's so hard of discussing that evening with her family? I don't understand where he's coming from.
Michael's son Todd, in an apparent effort to explain the fall, begins telling everyone that Kathleen was drunk on the night she died. Michael agreed the two had been drinking heavily, he said. And he told everyone that it wasn't unusual for the pair to get crunk on the weekends.
Did he use that word?
No.
Oh my God, I wish he had.
Yeah. He was like, we get crunk. And then, like, Lil Jon's in the background, like, yeah.
What?
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess it's common for them, he says, to go out by the pool and drink and, you know, sit there and talk, which sounds like a lot of fun, honestly. And then, you know, sometimes she would go to bed before him, or one or the other might go in before the other. So it's just a normal evening at home is the way he's describing it, right?
Yeah, this is just typical Saturday night.
Okay.
According to Michael. At 11 p.m. on the night of Kathleen's death, she had received a work email and had actually spoken to a coworker. Now, the coworker is going to deny that Kathleen was impaired. The coworker says she sounded completely sober when they had this phone call at 11 p.m.
Oh, so it was a phone call.
Yes.
Okay.
Then the results of Kathleen's blood test and toxicology report come back, and the tests show her blood was normal. She was not intoxicated, nor did she have any traces of Valium in her system.
So she's not intoxicated at all.
No.
And there's no Valium.
No Valium.
But he's saying that they both had drank quite heavily.
Yes.
And he thought she had taken Valium as well.
Yeah.
No. Hey, what do you do with that? That's weird.
When the coroner releases the initial report, investigators' suspicions are confirmed. So the ME found that she didn't fall down the stairs. Lacerations on her skull were not consistent with a fall.
Okay.
Investigators want to know more about what happened to Kathleen Peterson. Once Michael is under the microscope, revelations are going to just shock everybody. A complicated scene has unfolded here. So there were cops and police cars camped out on the lawn for days, with this home becoming a crime scene. Friends and family supported Michael, thinking it was some kind of political angle to accuse him. I mean, after all, he had a lot of enemies, like within Durham's police department, district attorney's office. Kathleen's daughter, Caitlin, spoke with reporters in the beginning, and she was calling the investigation into Michael appalling. The autopsy report was finally released to the public. A forensic pathologist conducted the examination and took into account the number of scalp lacerations, neck injury, and other findings that Kathleen's death was not from a fall. Her arms, hands were bruised. It almost looked like she had, like wounds, like she was trying
to... Like defensive wounds?
Yes, like she was trying to fight back.
Okay.
She has what look like defensive wounds. Clumps of her hair have been pulled out in her hands.
What the hell?
7 lacerations on her head were stunning. So she had died from blood loss probably 90 minutes to 2 hours after sustaining those injuries. So it's just not consistent with Michael's story.
Well, it's not consistent at all. It's not even close.
On December 20th, 2001, Durham police indict Michael. They arrest him, and he's charged with first-degree murder. Now, he turns himself in, and then afterwards, he speaks publicly for the first time. He gave a very poetic statement, then went on to say he was innocent. So I'm going to read a statement here. Let me get my Michael Peterson voice. Kathleen was the love of my life. I whispered her name in my heart 1,000 times. She is there, but I can't stop crying. I would have never done anything to hurt her. I am innocent of these charges. I will prove it in court. People I do not know wonder how I can go out of prison, but I say I didn't do anything. I am truly innocent of these charges.
Wow. Damn, I wonder how long you worked on that.
It's interesting. I mean, he never actually says, I didn't murder my wife. And using the word hurt seems to kind of minimize the fact that she was killed.
Yeah.
It reduces the importance of the situation And this is a common strategy used by guilty people or narcissists.
Oh my God. You found all that in that? See, you're smart.
Well, yeah, I mean, there have been people who have kind of analyzed some of his statements and words.
Well, yeah, of course.
Experts
Especially
that are like, a lot of guilty people will try to minimize the situation. I didn't hurt her. He never actually comes out and says, I didn't do this. Anyway. So he's placed in jail for almost a month before he's allowed to post bond. Investigators get a phone call from a woman in Rhode Island who happens to be the sister of Elizabeth Ratliff, his friend in Germany.
Okay, now here's where it takes an interesting turn.
Now, the caller went on to say that Mrs. Ratliff was found dead in Germany, having fallen down the stairs.
No shit.
Her children's nanny made the discovery. Michael Peterson was the last person to see Elizabeth alive.
Well, I mean, if that's just a coincidence, that is the most unfortunate coincidence I've ever heard of in my life. He's been in direct contact, the last person to see that person healthy and alive, with two separate women that were found at the foot of stairs dead.
At the time, German police ruled the death as accidental. The autopsy concluded she died from a brain hemorrhage, and later co-workers would state that Elizabeth had been having some serious headaches in the days leading up to her death. There were also copious amounts of blood at Elizabeth's death scene. Now later, her body is going to be exhumed and re-examined. This is going to happen in April of 2003. She also had 7 lacerations on her head, which would suggest blunt force trauma.
What's odds of that?
The updated autopsy report is going to indicate that she died from homicidal assault.
So I guess the original investigators just dropped the ball, I reckon, right?
Michael will never be formally charged in her death. However, prosecutors will draw parallels between the two women's deaths. And there's been speculation that Michael and Elizabeth had some sort of illicit affair, but Michael's ex-wife, Patricia, has openly said the relationship was platonic. Elizabeth's daughters, who were raised by Michael, have come out in support of him, and they don't believe he had any hand in killing their mother. Anyway, investigators' ears perk when they get this tea. I mean, could it be a coincidence? The similarities are eerily striking. So 2 women in his life dead at the bottom of staircases.
Both of them dead at the bottom of the staircase. Both of them 7 strikes to the head by something. You know, some kind of blunt force trauma. I mean, lots of blood at both scenes. He's the last person to see both women alive. I don't know. I mean, how could you not just like freaking get a investigative hard on when you hear all this?
So all of this is happening while he's still awaiting trial. And his kids remain by his side. They are vigilantly supporting Michael. But Caitlin, Kathleen's daughter, she breaks from her initial support. She's wanting to get to the bottom of what happened to Kathleen Peterson. When she sees the medical examiner's report, the autopsy, and she hears the story about Elizabeth Ratliff in Germany, Caitlin's like, no.
So that's her stepfather. She was
right.
Kathleen's daughter before they got married.
Yes.
Well, I mean, how could you not? I mean, again, how with this evidence, with seeing what these other experts and individuals and all this information together, including the woman from Germany, how could I keep supporting you?
When Kathleen died, there was a $1.8 million life insurance policy. The prosecution believed Michael had killed Kathleen to access the life insurance money, which he desperately needed. He hires attorney David Rudolph, who is considered a high-powered lawyer in the area. Investigators learn of the financial woes the couple had faced, that Kathleen might have been on the edge of losing her job, and that the Petersons were basically living month to month on credit cards. As the trial drew near, Michael's computers are analyzed by experts. Now, he had a surprising hobby.
He has another curveball on those computers.
Hundreds of pornographic websites, over 2,000 downloads of photos and videos, also email exchanges between Michael and a male escort.
So Michael likes guys.
He does. So he's a married man, and this raises the question. I mean, they're like, is he gay? Is he bisexual? Are they in an open marriage? Does Kathleen know he's trying to hire a male escort? But really, I don't understand how any of this was admissible in court. But they introduced it at trial.
Yes, they do. They not only, they even had one of.
Well, they had the escort on the stand.
Yeah, they had him on the stand,
asking him lots of questions.
Lots of questions. So I don't honestly. I mean, I long before this came out, I was already like, this dude, I think, killed his wife. Honestly, that's what I thought. And then when this breaks, and they're just like, oh, homosexual, and I'm just like, oh, come on, guys, we got to do that shit. And I really don't see the relevance, but I guess the prosecution kind of puts their slant on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it plays into a motive,
well, I think,
can understand.
Well, I think they're reaching for an actual another motive besides just financial. Maybe she discovered this or whatever, blah blah blah, and they got argued about it. But I don't know.
Yeah, it almost seems like there's some underlying homophobia with this information.
Well, yeah, it's just like when they parade that someone's a sex worker or something on the stand. You're like, it's not even relevant to the case.
Right.
Or their drug addiction or something like that.
On July 1st of 2003, the murder trial begins, and it's going to be a really high-profile case broadcast on national TV. Nancy Grace is going to eat this up with a spoon.
Now, am I correct in that you lived in the area when this happened?
I was living in Cary, North Carolina, which is 35 minutes or so from Durham.
Yep.
And I watched this trial on court TV all day, every day.
I guess it was a big deal in the area, huh?
Yeah, I was obsessed with it. And this was probably the first trial I ever really watched daily.
So
kept up with.
Was there updates on the news every evening?
Oh, yeah.
And all the newspapers?
Oh, of course. Yes. Yeah, this was big news in that area. And the trial is making headlines, and imagine most likely because of all the curveballs that were being thrown.
Well, there's a lot going on in this story. I mean, really.
So there's all this drama that had been going on for the past year, and it's all going to come down to this showdown sort of between the defense and the prosecution. So it's just all playing out in court. It's salacious. Everyone's eyes are on the story. What's going to happen next, right?
Oh my God, homosexual relations.
Debt. $1 million. Yeah.
A mansion.
The strongest evidence of Michael's innocence proclaimed by his attorney is the 911 call itself. Now, it was not the kind of call from someone who just murdered their wife, so the attorney says. When the call is played in court, Peterson begins crying. The defense paints a picture of a grieving widower who lost the love of his life. The prosecution paints Michael as a known liar who was having affairs with men, was broke, and needed Kathleen dead so he could profit. Again, $143,000 in credit card debt was owed at the time of her death, and Michael was set to inherit $1.8 million when she died. He had even reached out to his ex-wife before Kathleen's death about mortgaging her house to help cover the costs of his sons, who also apparently had huge debts.
What the hell? Everybody's got debts.
He had also been the benefactor of a $250,000 trust for Elizabeth Ratliff's 2 children back in the 80s. So according to testimony, Michael hadn't earned money in over 3 years, so Kathleen was footing all the bills. He needed this money.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you could argue that since she is the primary financial source, that he might be better off if she doesn't die. She could sell something off or maybe get another job. She's kicking ass. She's a corporate, very good at the corporate life and all that. So I don't know. I guess you could argue that, right? That he'd be better off if she was alive because she's kind of his meal ticket at the moment.
Detectives testified about the large amount of blood found at the crime scene. Forensic experts discussed the lacerations and inconsistencies with an accidental fall. Pathologists testified that Kathleen died from a beating of some kind, and blunt force trauma is likely what killed her. The amount of blood was consistent with the beating, some type of object. They suggested perhaps a fire poker or this custom-made blow poke.
No,
that was in the house.
Not the blow poke.
Small blood splatter stains were on the inside of Michael's shorts, as if he had been standing over her, like beating her with some sort of instrument. So it was like impact splatter that was like up inside his shorts.
Well, how does that get there if you're not over her when she's being struck?
Right? So that's an odd piece of information. So the state called the escort as a witness. You mentioned that, Dylan. He detailed on the stand that he'd do just about anything for money, sexually. Of course, this doesn't look good, and the prosecutors hammered down on this alleged misreporting of his military service and what they described as a gay lifestyle he led in secret. They contended that Kathleen had discovered Michael's double life and wanted to end the marriage, which is not a bad theory, I guess, considering the type of murder, because it doesn't seem like he planned this murder ahead of time.
Right.
This is just my opinion. So it does make more sense that perhaps she discovered he was planning to fuck this male escort, and she flips out and threatens divorce, and then he just sort of snaps and kills her. I mean, maybe he thought he could get away with the stare thing because he had done it once before.
Well, that's the theory.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, the defense argued that Kathleen accepted Michael's bisexuality, but even his attorney, Rudolph, at one point had to admit that Kathleen was likely not okay with an open marriage because she had divorced her first husband over marital infidelity.
Oh, wow.
So he even has to admit that in court.
Oh, that's not going to help the case any.
Now, October 10th of 2003, and this is like one of the longest trials in North Carolina's history, a Durham County jury finds Peterson guilty. Now, he's sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Though the jury did seem to think the murder was a spur-of-the-moment crime, they also felt it had an element of premeditation.
So that was enough to get first-degree premeditation?
Peterson goes to prison at Nash Correctional Institution near Rocky Mount until December of 2011. It's crazy. Another turn of events in the story.
Now, this is where it gets even crazier.
Peterson's attorneys exhaust appeals. Then, in late 2009, the owl theory comes into play. And if you've seen the staircase, then you know all about the owl theory. But I'm going to get into it.
Who comes up with this shit?
A neighbor of the Petersons raised questions when he approached police suggesting an owl might have been responsible for Kathleen's death. On the SBI evidence list, a feather was listed. So the State Bureau of Investigation, their crime lab, had listed a microscopic owl feather and a sliver from a tree limb, like a wood sliver, that were tangled in a clump of Kathleen's hair, which was pulled out by the roots, as I mentioned, and it was found in her left hand.
Oh, okay. I see why the owl story can happen.
A re-examination of her hair found 2 more microscopic owl feathers.
So these are these aren't a big whole feather that you can see with your eye.
No, they're microscopic.
It's like a little piece of a feather, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay.
The pathologist who was initially responsible for the autopsy ridiculed this claim, saying it was unlikely an owl or any other kind of bird could have made the deep wounds that were present on Kathleen's scalp. Later, Peterson's attorney will file a motion to hire a bird expert from the Smithsonian Institute to examine the feather fragments so they can determine if she could have been attacked by an owl.
Okay.
In 2011, this is where things get even crazier.
So I never understood from that. Okay, I'll say this after you get done.
A State Bureau of Investigation and SBI analyst who was one of the main witnesses in the Peterson trial was found to be doing shoddy work on criminal cases. He claimed to be some sort of blood expert, but they find out he's only received like maybe a weekend training course.
See, this
he is no expert.
This guy hurts the prosecution's case big time because he is not only not an expert, he's full of shit. He is totally full of shit. And this really hurts their case.
An audit of the SBI, like the agency, found that this guy had made false claims in 34 cases, including withholding negative results in some cases.
Right, so he's omitting evidence that doesn't support whatever theory or story he's come up with. which is totally, that's not how it's supposed to work.
No. So this analyst is fired. And on December 16th of 2011, Peterson was released from jail on a $300,000 bail. And he's placed under house arrest and has to wear an ankle monitor.
Now, is it more because of the analyst bullshit than the owl theory?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so I've never understood about the owl theory. Okay, now owls, some of them are big, and big talons on a bird are a scary thing. So I don't have any doubt in my mind that they could rip or shred. But did it attack her all the way down the fucking stairs? I mean, I've never understood how there's, it's not like this happened like just inside the door or something. I never understood the theory that this owl attacked her and she's like ripping her own hair out or whatever. But there's blood all up and down the staircase. Now, that's the part I don't get. I mean, is that fucking owl there and then the owl just gets out of the house? I mean, yeah. I mean, come on.
Right. So like it just comes through a window, attacks her.
Yeah.
And then after it attacks her, it immediately flies back out the window?
Yeah, this owl's like, let me be out, because it's probably going to be bad. I hope they don't blame that guy for murdering his wife. I hope this owl is very thoughtful owl.
Right.
I hope that he didn't, maybe have a connection to another woman who was found at the base of a set of stairs dead, because that's not going to be a good look for Guy. And this is
fucking
all...
owl. You know what?
While the fucking owl's flying away.
The Goblin King, right?
Bruh.
It's David Bowie, and he's just like doing the owl thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Was it Jareth?
Yeah.
Jared?
He's just like an owl, and then he like flies away and goes back to the Goblin City after he like takes someone's baby brother.
I saw my baby crying hard as babes could cry.
You do a good job, Dylan.
What should I do?
On February 24th.
Oh, I saw that costume today at the Halloween store.
Cool.
I'm sorry.
You could be like a fat Goblin King.
I could be a fat Goblin King.
On February 24th of 2017, Peterson enters an Alford plea. And if you're not familiar with this is a guilty plea because insufficient evidence exists to convict him of the offense, but the defendant asserts innocence.
The Alford plea is such bullshit, in my opinion. And honestly, I've seen it used against the West Memphis 3.
Yeah, that's probably the most famous case.
And that's the one.
Where
and
people have probably
actually,
heard of the Alford plea.
The Alford plea originated in North Carolina. Alford versus the state of North Carolina. A very wild case. But the West Memphis 3, after all those years and it seems like evidence against them being guilty, instead of letting them out, one more, finger in your eye, they're going to make you do an Alford plea where you're basically saying, I'm not guilty, but I'm going to plead guilty.
Right.
I mean, that's basically
Well, in that case, initially, wasn't Damien Eccles like, fuck that, I'm not doing that?
Yeah,
because he was so adamant that, like, I didn't do this, I'm not going to say I did.
The other two guys are like, dude.
Just let's get out of prison, please.
Let's spend 18 years in jail or whatever. They're already grown. They've lost their entire youth to this. They just wanted out. So, yeah, because Damien was like, I'm not doing it because we were innocent. But, yeah, so sometimes you see the state use this in a way that is they don't have evidence, but it still lets them off the hook. It still keeps you can't sue them for wrongful prosecution and things like that. So I think it's total horse shit.
So Peterson enters his Alford plea, but it's to voluntary manslaughter of Kathleen. He was given 86 months in prison, but credited for time served. So Peterson is out now.
So that was just the end of it.
That's the end of it.
Oh my God, I thought they were going to retry his ass.
In 2018, Netflix released a documentary called The Staircase, directed by Jean-Xavier de Lestrade, a French filmmaker. It is a 13-episode docuseries with access to Michael Peterson, his extended family, the courtroom, his attorneys. When it was initially released in 2004, it won a Peabody Award. And then Netflix bought it, they added a few additional things, and it became a success. I'm going to guess probably like 90% of our listeners have watched The Staircase because they're all true crime fans.
Well, yeah, I mean, I watched The Staircase. Who hadn't watched The Staircase?
I didn't watch the whole thing.
It got kind of like, look, bruh, this could have been 5 episodes.
Yeah.
This could have been 6 episodes.
Peterson, who is now in his mid-70s, wrote a book and put it online for free.
Was it called If I Did It?
Behind the Staircase is what it's called.
Shut up.
During this filming, Peterson had a 15-year relationship with an editor of the documentary crew named Sophie Brunet. So, of course, the film doesn't mention that part of the story.
So, wait, it took them, they filmed that for that long? After it took all them years to get all that footage?
Well, no, Dylan, it took a couple of years to get all that footage, and then, of course, he's in prison, so I guess they had that, but he kept in touch with this lady, and they had this relationship, even while he was in prison.
Okay. I mean, that's the guy I would go out with.
Well, that's the thing. So a lot of people think, oh, well, I watched that, The Staircase, and it made a lot of sense, and I feel like this guy got railroaded, and there are a lot of people who have strong feelings that he's innocent. But I think the fact that it doesn't mention that the editor of the film was in a relationship with him.
She edited the film.
Then obviously
which has full control.
That's obviously swaying the story a bit.
Yeah, through editing, you can change everything one way or the other.
Well, yeah. And so I thought that was an important part to mention. Now, another weird connection to Netflix is through his attorney, David Rudolph. So he's a law professor of Jerry Budding, who formed the defense team for Stephen Avery in Making a Murderer.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, his former stepdaughter, Caitlin Atwater, she won a $25 million wrongful death suit against Peterson. Because of the lawsuit, he can't profit from the book he wrote. That's why he put it online for free. Now, he's been on Dr. Phil. So he's been, making the rounds.
But he doesn't get any of the money.
Right. Now, Dr. Phil thinks he's guilty, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. Caitlin was a student at Cornell University when her mother died, and from what I gather, she lives somewhere in Northern Virginia with her husband and kids. Michael's sons, who are prominent in the Staircase, they lead fairly private lives now. Todd lives in Baltimore with his family. Clayton lives in Tennessee. Margaret Ratliff is a film producer who's worked on some major movies, actually. And Martha lives in Colorado. So it's just a little update on where are they now.
Man, you watch that. You can watch Making a Murderer or The Staircase or all these shows and be like, damn, one thing I don't agree with is the paid experts for either the prosecution or the defense. Those people, and like Dr. Henry Lee, I love him. In The Staircase, I think he was on maybe the defense's team, and they can be very convincing, and maybe what they're saying is, right even, but you're really going to say whatever you need to for the people that are paying you. You know what I'm saying? You're going to say whatever you need to support their case, be it the defense or the prosecution. So I don't even understand why we waste money on that aspect of testimony. I think it should be like a case, the case itself should, maybe both parties pay for it, but it should be an objective experts brought in, because that's really just theater at that point, don't you think?
Yeah.
I think the science and the facts should back up, and then everybody can take those and twist it, if they want to, with their ideas or, about what happened or with other evidence. But I think there should be some way of keeping it impartial and objective as far as the science goes.
In a recent interview, Michael told a reporter, get this, Kathleen once told me I was every character in every book I'd written. She said she could identify me in all of them. Okay, I'm going to do that again. In a recent interview, Michael told a reporter, Kathleen once told me that I was every character in every book I'd written. She said she could identify me in all of them. None of them are all bad, I said. True, she answered, but none of them are all good either.
Ooh,
Isn't
damn.
that telling?
Damn, Michael.
The mansion where Kathleen died was listed for sale back in June of 2020 for $1.9 million. There's no mention of the famous death in the real estate ads.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, imagine. I thought they had to disclose deaths in the paperwork and stuff.
Nope.
What?
Well, no, not all states. North Carolina is not a state where you have to disclose if someone was murdered or there was a suicide or a death in the house. No, it's not in North Carolina real estate law.
Oh, man, I went for some true crime buffs. Look at the house and be like, hold up. That's that fucking staircase.
And I know because I studied real estate in North Carolina, unless they've changed the laws in like the last,
Oh, well.
10 years.
That doesn't surprise me about
But
North Carolina.
You didn't have to disclose that.
I would want to know. I would be like,
Some states you do have to disclose.
Yeah, I'd be
but
like
not in North Carolina.
Yeah, I'd be like, I really want to buy this house now.
So let's talk, Dylan. Guilty or not?
I think he was guilty. What do you think?
Well, what happened is a huge mystery. I mean, did the prosecution prove his guilt in the 5-month trial? I'm not sure about that. I think he's guilty, but the theories about the blow poke and stuff don't make sense. Now, it seems to me that maybe he stomped on her. My other theory is that maybe he attacked her with like a tree limb, because that would explain the wood sliver and the owl feathers. And then maybe he tossed it outside.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Also, there was some blood evidence found outside, which makes me think that she could have been initially attacked outside. She went inside, and he, got her again.
Well, I tell you what, though, I mean, I hadn't developed actually good theories like that you have there, but just the amount of blood and the spray and the splatter all over that staircase, there is no way that is somebody falling down the stairs and whacking their head 2 or 3 times on the way down. There's just simply no way. Not possible.
So my other thoughts on this are the timeline doesn't fit that owl theory from him, being outside, then finding her body. Because, like you said, Dylan, an owl attacks her and then it immediately, goes outside.
Yeah. I
mean, I feel like he would have walked in and found this owl attacking her.
Or there'd be a lot more than microscopic feathers. There'd be full-on feathers, whole feathers. There would be, it would be a big thing. Come on.
Yes, I think the investigation was bungled. And yes, I think the prosecution fucked up. But is he innocent? Hardly. Now, I don't believe that she fell down the stairs. And the owl attack makes more sense than she fell down the stairs. But I still don't buy it. She's clearly attacked, whether it was Michael or the owl, but the stairs didn't attack her. I just don't think she fell down the stairs. I feel like it would have made more sense for Michael to be like, it was the one-armed man.
Yep.
Than an owl, or she just fell down the stairs.
There you go.
Also, the fact that he took that Alford plea makes me think he's guilty, because he's admitting guilt, but he doesn't want to go to retrial, and I understand why he doesn't. I mean, his age, the cost of attorneys, etc., but I don't think I could ever admit I did something like murder my spouse to save myself all the effort.
Well, yeah, on that one, you got to say, let's say he was innocent in this. Well, he's already been convicted once of it, right? He's an old man. He's starting to fail in his health. I could see taking an Alfred plea in the end just to get the fuck out of jail. Because even if you are innocent, even if it rips your soul out to do it, at that point, you just want to get out of jail.
I guess so, but I just don't.
But yeah, I know what you're saying.
If somebody accused me of murdering you, and I love you as much as I do,
I'm not saying I would do that.
I just don't think I could say, okay, I'll admit that I did this when I didn't.
I wouldn't do it.
I'm too stubborn.
But I could understand why somebody would do it. So that part is kind of tricky. But, it's just, I guess we'll never know. He's the only person alive that knows the truth.
And my problem with the staircase is it presents Michael Peterson as this victim, not his poor wife who's dead. And it's an interesting study on how the justice system works for wealthy white men. And you can see that he's this arrogant, self-centered person at the beginning of the film. And the follow-up is this frail, bitter old man, once he's out of prison.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see how that's changed him.
Yeah, it's true.
And you don't have to agree with me, but I do think he's guilty. And I think prosecutors just got the theory wrong. But the evidence is still there showing that Kathleen was murdered.
I think that's the best way you can sum it up, babe.
You think so?
Yeah, I'm glad we did the staircase.
Okay, well, thanks for tuning in to Mountain Murders. This has been episode 102.
Woohoo!
Where can they find us, Dylan?
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. TikTok. You're better at saying this stuff.
Dylan might do a TikTok dance.
And you can email us at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com. Send us any crazy, scary, or spooky, weird story you got.
Or just you had a fucked up experience with another customer and a story's stupid.
Yes, please. We can do an episode on Get the fuck out of the way. That's what I'm going to call that episode.
Bitch.
Yeah.
Get out the way.
That's
We can call the episode.
That's our ludicrous episode.
Well, thanks, guys. Have a great week.